On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we're going to recap the KU basketball offseason. We're going to get into some of the biggest player superlatives. Who's the best shooter? Who's most likely to be in the Bill Self doghouse? We get into all that on today's episode of the show.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. And on today's edition of the show, we are breaking down, recapping, rehashing the KU basketball offseason. What have they added, and what does the roster look like? What is it probably going to produce on the floor for KU? We'll also get into some of the team superlatives, who's the best at this or that, and then we'll finish with some of the latest news, including KU coming in at 19th in the original preseason poll for the season. Today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by Game Time, which you can use to get tickets to some of the KU basketball games upcoming this season. And with Game Time, you can use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So KU basketball had a very interesting offseason, to say the least. This was a offseason for KU in which you lost a lot of players who have accomplished a lot, I guess you would say, at the collegiate level. Obviously, Hunter Dickinson was a multi-time All-American, and you lose him. You lose KJ Adams, who's now kind of on staff as a assistant coach. You lose DeJuan Harris, who's your team leader in assists for several years, operated at point guard. Ryland Griffin, AJ Storr transfer away after those didn't work. Shaquille Moore graduates. Zeke Mayo, who was just unstoppable shooting the ball at home and averaged over 14 points per game. All of those guys are now gone for Kansas. And it's one of those situations where, I continue to say, I think KU could have made it work around any of Hunter, KJ, or DeJuan, because Hunter had a lot of, box score success and had success at moments at Michigan. He went to, 2 second weekends. He went to an Elite Eight as a 1 seed. DeJuan Harris was the starting point guard on the national championship team. KJ Adams was the starting center on a 1 seed. I think any of those individual players could have worked and had some skills that you could have worked with. The problem was all three of those guys didn't fit together. And it basically got ran back last year, and so it didn't work out for KU. And I don't think all of that was their fault necessarily. But I do think the end result now is a little bit of addition by subtraction for KU. And I don't mean that for any of the individual players. I think is the overall just having kind of a roster reset after where you were the last 2 years and getting to kind of reset this, getting to kind of, reshape the roster in this team around Darryn Peterson. I think that is a huge thing. That's a good thing for Bill Self and where Kansas is at. So what did they do in the offseason? Well, first of all, who came back on the roster? Floyd Badunga is the big one. He's the one who people think could, be all Big 12, could be an All-American breakout candidate this year in a bigger usage role. We saw some of the flashes last year, especially when he was starting when KJ was hurt. I personally am one of those people that thinks Flory is going to have a huge season for Kansas. He comes back. Then you have Elmarco Jackson, played a lot as a freshman, gets injured last year in the offseason. Now he's fully back, but he was a guy who, when we saw him on the court as a true freshman, wasn't totally ready to be out there, but that Kansas team was too thin. They couldn't afford not to play him. Now he has more time with the system, but he's coming off an injury. How is it going to look now? I think Elmarco is going to have a good year this year and kind of a role player role. But what is that going to look like? Then Jamari McDowell, he's coming off a red shirt. And then I guess technically Bryson Tiller as well. He's coming off a red shirt, joined mid-semester, very talented big man, could get some minutes at the 4, could get some minutes at the 5 for KU. You added 4 freshmen. Obviously, the most notable is your most notable player on the team. That's Darryn Peterson. He's the number 1 rated recruit on 24/7 Sports. This dude is an all-world, all-everything wing guard type for KU. He's going to be the lead guard for Kansas. And he's somebody who has a real chance to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And this is a very good top of the NBA draft. So it's not just, anytime you're the number 1 pick, that's a big deal. But it's an even bigger deal in what potentially this draft could be. Peterson is a very, very good player. Now, you supplanted that or supported that with Cole Rosario, who finished just outside the top 70 on 24/7 Sports rankings, but felt like somebody who, if you would have stayed this year and not reclassed in overtime elite, it felt like he was trending in the right direction, that he would have ended up ranked even higher, and seems to be killing it in the offseason. Smeeze Calderon just ranked outside the top 80 on 24/7 Sports rankings. Very good athlete. What are they going to get from him outside of that? But is that enough to get you on the floor? And then Corbin Allen, who's a 3-star, kind of a local kid, played for Sharon Collins in high school, more of a developmental player for KU. You look at Peterson, he's going to be the dude. Flory and him become the dynamic duo for KU. And then you kind of look at Cole Rosario as being a competing for a starting lineup or rotation spot. Smeeze Calderon competing for a rotation spot. It looks like, I don't know, Smeeze Calderon and Bryson Tiller, like that's going to be a big competition for who can play more of the minutes at the 4, specifically, as a backup 4, possibly. Marco Jackson, going back to the returners, like feels like he's going to be in that rotation as well for KU. Then you have your international additions, G. Ngala, the transfer guard from Canada, who's like 25 years old. Good 3-point shooter, quick guard. I don't know how much he'll be in the rotation for KU, but good to have that experience and somebody else who can come in and hit a 3 if you need him. Paul Mbia is your larger-than-life center, 7'9" center coming over from overseas. And Mbia was playing in the French league, was playing at a youth level. But again, the 7'9" wingspan transfers over. How ready is he going to be? How raw is he going to be? But how much does, again, having a 7'9" wingspan kind of overdue for that and make him super effective for KU? And then you have your transfer additions, which, as much as it felt like, we're hampered and talking about the transfer portal all the time, felt like KU added 6 transfers. They added 3, really not as much as you might think. Now, I guess if you counted the international guys, then it would be a little bigger. But Melvin Council is the first one, transfer from St. Bonaventure. Before that was at Wagner. Super high minutes guy, very good athlete, good defender, really good assist to turnover ratio, not the most efficient scorer or shooter. Then you had Jaden Dawson, who is an efficient scorer and shooter, but how is he going to translate over, making the jump from Loyola Chicago? And then you have Trey White, who's kind of a jack of all trades, was formerly committed to Kansas when he was like a sophomore in high school, ended up going the long route to get here to KU, but again, does a lot of things well, figures to play a lot of minutes for KU at the 4. And when you look at the portal class KU brought in, it's not super sexy. It doesn't have your Hunter Dickinson, so to speak, but it does have a lot of guys who fit. It does have, in my opinion, 2 guys who are going to start probably in Melvin Council and Trey White. And it has another guy in Jaden Dawson who's going to have a chance to start or at least be a rotation player. And when you look at the fit of these players around Darryn Peterson and how they've built it, they really did prioritize this offseason fit over just pure talent. Now, ideally, you want to get the best talent that does fit as well, but the fit is so darn important, man. And we've seen that over the last couple of years. You have the high-end talent with Darryn Peterson. You have some other guys who have a chance, potential to pop this year. Yeah, I think it was smart to recruit the portal for fit, and I think Kansas and Bill Self did a really good job of that. It just felt like, could they have landed one more? Like the Darian Williams is the one that everybody points to. If you would have landed that one other one, maybe it makes the offseason an A+, but I still think they got more than enough done this offseason that they can be a really good basketball team this year. Now you look at the coaching staff too. That was part of the offseason as well for KU. Bill Self, the health scare stuff, like what is that going to mean long-term for him? Is it going to mean anything? Norm Roberts retires. Fred Kortelbaum gone. Kansas adds Jock Vaughn. Could he be the future head coach of Kansas basketball? At the very least, seems to be helping with the current team. In addition, on the recruiting trail, Tony Bland gets added as an assistant coach. That definitely seems to be helping KU on the recruiting trail. So it's been a very busy offseason for KU. And I think the overall bottom line here is this. Kansas has overhauled their roster, partially because they had to, but they have done it in a way that is a more fitting roster. It is one that is way more athletic than we've seen in a couple years in Lawrence. I mean, shoot, I don't know. This might be the most athletic roster. I guess you go back to the 22 to 23 roster that got a 1 seed, and then Bill Self couldn't coach in the tournament. That was a really athletic roster, right? But even then, that wasn't like, I think this one's more athletic than that. When would you go? The 1921 was pretty athletic because you have Christian Brown and Ochai and Devon Dotson super fast and Doak athletic for a center and stuff. But point being, this is a very athletic roster. It's one that's switchable. It's going to give Bill Self a lot of opportunities on defense to make this an elite defense. They're going to throw down a lot of dunks. How good is the shooting? I don't know, but I think there's a lot of dogs on the roster. I think Bill Self's going to enjoy coaching this team. And I think they're going to be tough. I think they're going to be gritty. And I think fans are going to like this team is kind of where I'm at based on what happened in the offseason. Let's get some team superlatives. Who's the best shooter? Who's the best dunker, who's the best rebounder, who's most likely to be in the Bills' health doghouse. We'll get to all that next. This is Locked On Jayhawks. And today's episode of the show is brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your silverware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to let your home or get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. The delivery is fast and free, which is a lifesaver during a busy time of year. So get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's wayfair.com, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. This episode's also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can get your early college basketball futures on there right now as well, including Kansas to win the national title at 25-1 odds, or Darryn Peterson to win the Wooden Award. That number's gone up to 10-1, which is even better. I'm all about that. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with FanDuel. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe. Check out Locked On College Basketball. Free second listen everywhere as well. I just appeared on Locked On College Basketball to help preview KU. All right, some of the superlatives for this team. Best shooter. Let's start there. Now, I think Cole Rosario is going to have some games where you're going to point to that, where I think he's going to be a streaky shooter. There's going to be some games where you see it. There's going to be some games where maybe he's 0 for 5, because that's kind of what it was last year at Overtime Elite. And with younger players, you tend to be more inconsistent shooting. That's what typically it's better as you go along. I think Jaden Dawson will be in the mix there. And then I think Darryn Peterson is the other one that I would kind of look to there. And that's my answer. I'm going to try to do – I'm a little worried as we go through these superlatives. Am I just going to keep saying Darryn Peterson? Because he just might be the best at everything for Kansas, because he's that good of a player. But I go back to the Fran Fraschilla, story that he tweeted out when he was at a practice and they were doing a scrimmage, and Peterson hit 8 threes in a scrimmage. And I'm like, I don't know. How long was this scrimmage? How real was it? Were you being guarded by a walk-on? Like, who knows all the details? But, like, the fact that that was even in you, I mean, think about 8 threes, and I don't know. That seemed really impressive to me. And again, I just go back to that he's good at everything. So I'm going to actually take Darryn Peterson for that one there. Best driver on the team. I think you could make a case Melvin Council could end up being the one there, but he's not somebody who averaged a bunch of, like, even though he was fast and able to get to the rim, it wasn't always the score. Sometimes it's drive and kick, sometimes just wouldn't score it. So I don't know if that would be the best one that you would point to. I do think maybe you just go back to the well and say Darryn Peterson on that one. Best scorer, let's also go with Darryn Peterson there. This is a more interesting conversation to me, though, if you get this to a point of, because I would be surprised if Peterson's not the leading scorer. Could be 16, 17, 18, 19, even 20, 22 points per game. I don't know. Who's the second best scorer on this Kansas team? I think is a real conversation. I think right now, like, maybe the favorites for that conversation would have to be one of either Melvin Council, Trey White, whoever wins the starting 3 job between, like, Rosario, Jaden Dawson, and then Flory Badunga. I do think White, Council, and Badunga would be higher up on that odds board, or lower, depending which way you're looking at it. I think White's going to be out there a lot. You don't have a lot of other logical 4s. Again, Tiller and Calderon can play there, but no guarantee either guy is locked into the rotation. And White could end up averaging 12 points per game. And that's the thing. You could have, like, Peterson could give you 18 to 20 a game, and then you could have 3 or 4 guys between, like, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 points per game. There's a chance Flory could average, like, 14 a game, kind of like a Cole Aldridge. There's also a chance the Flory averages, like, 10 a game, and the offense isn't totally diverse, and he's getting 10 a game, but he's getting, 12 rebounds and 3 blocks per game. And I almost would go with Melvin Council from a standpoint of, he was playing 38 minutes per game last year. And if you're somebody Bill Self trusts and you're playing good defense, which he's known to have, and you are kind of a dog and you can, like, take the fatigue of playing that many minutes, which he's shown he can at the college game, Bill Self will ride you. Bill Self will play you lots of minutes. We've seen him play guards a lot of minutes before, right? Like, think of Frank Mason and Devontae Graham, some of those guys playing 35, 36, 37 minutes a game in some of their seasons. I could see Council playing to that notion 32, 34 minutes per game. And if he does 12, 13 points per game for a guy who was averaging over 14 a game last year, doesn't seem entirely impossible. So maybe that would be the answer there. Best passer on the team, again, let's go with Darryn Peterson, but you could make the argument Melvin Council. Look at his assist to turnover numbers. It's funny because for a guy who's been compared a lot to Tyshawn Taylor with his athleticism, with being a bit of a taller guard, and Tyshawn was a better scorer or a more efficient scorer and a better shooter. But Council, like the big bugaboo against Tyshawn was sometimes there were games where he had too many turnovers. Council has really good turnover numbers. Council has really good assist to turnover numbers. So you could make that argument there as well. Best rebounder on the team, this is one that I would pick somebody else. I guess you could say pound for pound. Maybe it is still Darryn Peterson. Maybe even Trey White if we're talking pound for pound. But I think this has to be Flory Bidunga. Excellent offensive rebounder last year. It's interesting. The defensive rebound rate numbers were actually really good for Flory last year. But it did feel like in watching the games, there were too many times where playing against a center, he got like out-muscled, outsized, and the opposing guy he was guarding ended up getting an offensive rebound. So that's something I'm looking at to see if he can be better at this year. But yeah, I mean, Flory's probably going to average double-digit rebounds per game, or at least darn near close to it. So he's the best rebounder. Also the best shot blocker, I think, would have to be Flory Bidunga on this team. I mean, he was like the best shot blocker in the Big 12 last year, playing limited minutes. Now, maybe there's an argument coming in that you add Paul Mbia with a 7'9" wingspan. What if Mbia actually ends up being the better shot blocker on the team just because you have two elite ones and he's just slightly better? I do think he's a little more raw. I would go with Flory in that answer, but that'll be at least a fun one to kind of monitor and watch. The best glue guy on this Kansas team. So this kind of depends how you view it. Like Trey White makes a lot of sense for this answer because as a connective piece is the four when you don't have a lot of other fours, when you don't have a lot of other wings on the roster, like true wings. He makes a lot of sense. And he's kind of a jack of all trades, does a lot of things well. And for a lot of people, that is what the glue guy is. It's like, do you just do a lot of things pretty well? Maybe you're not like a lead at something, but you're just helping a lot of ways. And that makes sense. I also do wonder though, like, is Trey White too skilled to be a glue guy in the way that like maybe it ends up being a Cole Rosario or a Jaden Dawson in terms of if you're looking at the glue, the connectivity, this team needs 3-point shooting. I don't know how much of it they're going to have. Both of those guys could provide it. And when you look at, I look at like Cole Rosario, he's a good rebounder for a guard. He also makes a lot of hustle plays. Like also if we're talking like who's most likely to make the most hustle plays on this team, for that superlative, I think it would be Cole Rosario. And so if you're looking at the guy who, okay, in Rosario's case, you're going to get a lot of rebounds for a guard. You're going to be kind of a gritty player. You're going to make a lot of hustle plays and shoot threes and that part of it being a connective piece for this team. Maybe the answer for glue guy is Cole Rosario for Kansas. So I don't know. That would be an interesting one there. And then best defender on this team. I think most valuable defender is Flory Bidunga. The center has so much impact on the defensive end of the floor because everything kind of gets funneled to them, right? They can erase somebody else's mistake with either a shot block or just by being a presence that prevents the opposing player from getting a good look or missing a layup potentially. Maybe it ends up being a situation where like Melvin Council ends up being your best perimeter defender though, and having that different conversation. Bill's favorites. So Bill always has his favorites, right? Darryn Peterson, obvious answer there. I wouldn't be surprised if Melvin Council was a Bill Self favorite. Now, I could see Melvin Council also being in kind of the Russell Robinson, Tyshawn Taylor vein of like they clash heads at some points, but like I could see him being a favorite that he does play a lot of minutes because he trusts the defense and his game and everything. And then who is most likely to be in the Bill Self doghouse? I mean, it's interesting because like typically you think of the guys in the Bill Self doghouse as being like guys that, yeah, Bill Self is like clashing heads with or, maybe are a little more explosive personalities. Marco Jackson is such a good kid and he's like such a nice kid. Is there a chance that Bill Self, for like, if El Marco is not fully, I don't know, like The game looked like it was moving a little too fast his freshman year at times. If that is still the case this year, does it frustrate Bill Self and that cause him to go in there? That's entirely possible. I don't think that'd be my pick, but at least a situation scenario that I wanted to bring up. Maybe it's a Jaden Dawson, somebody who we thought was going to come in and possibly be a starter, and maybe Cole Rosario beats him out, and that ends up being the case. The other pick I think would have to be Bryson Tiller. He's a big man who I think is very talented, very skilled. He's been compared to the Morris twins. I think there were probably times where the Morris twins were in the Bill Self doghouse. And also Bryson Tiller, I think at times is kind of he wants to play like a wing at certain times in a big man body. And when he does that for Bill Self, it's going to be a quick hook and Bill's going to be like, what are you doing? So those would be the answers for, I think, that one there. Let's finish up, though. KU just got picked 19th in the AP preseason poll. We'll get to that and some of the other latest news. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. College football's here, and now college basketball's about to be back, and I don't know how you couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands or in the arena, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself sometimes. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best price with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can get tickets for, I don't know, if you want to drive out to the Louisville game, you can find tickets for that on Game Time. You want to get tickets to the KUK State game, you can find that on Game Time. And you can see the pictures of the seats so you know what you're getting into, right? If you are going to that Louisville exhibition game, you're like, I have no idea, like, where's a good seat in this? Like, what does this seat look like? Is there an obstruction in front of me? Well, check it out on Game Time and take the guesswork out of buying college football or college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time today. So thanks for joining us. Check out Locked on College Football, Locked on College Basketball for your second listen every day. At D Johnson Radio on Twitter, at LO_Jayhawks for the team account. So KU coming in at 19th in the preseason AP poll. They actually just came in at 21st in the preseason KenPom. And I do think both those will end up being underrated. Now, I've kind of said before, like, I can see the logic and the understanding of why some people have them in the 15 to 20 range. And I'm okay with that. I would have them closer to the 8 to 12 range because I am a full believer in what Bill Self has done with this roster and how good Darryn Peterson is going to be and how well it's going to optimize around it. But again, I can understand some of the hesitations and 3-point shooting and some of the other things of, like, do they have another, star scorer or star player or whatever? Like, those are real questions. The people who have them, because again, if you're preseason 19th, that means for everybody who picks you 15th, essentially somebody's picking you 23rd, 24th. I can't really get on board with, like, the late 20s, I don't know, people who might not even, like, have him ranked. Like, I remember John Rothstein all offseason had him like 32 or something. And so I just can't help but think, like, it's going to work and they are going to be underrated a little bit here. I think back to Michigan State, who have made this comparison before, that, the Spartans were, I don't know, preseason 35th, I think, on KenPom, finished 7th, made the Elite Eight. So maybe that's something for KU. But kind of a similar comp in terms of, like, not the best 3-point shooting team, was a good rebounding team, played good defense, and then, ended up, like, over exceeding, or they had a one and done too, and Jace Richardson, and I think KU's one and done is even better with Darryn Peterson. So I do think this team is a little bit underrated there. As far as the KU women's basketball selection, they were picked 6th in the Big 12 preseason poll. That's a good spot to be, right? Because you've lost a lot of players over the last couple of years, but you bring back a junior, Samaya Nichols. You have the best recruiting class of the Big 12 coming in. If you can finish 6th in the Big 12, you're going to be an NCAA tournament team. That's been the case the past couple of years in the Big 12. So do that, and you're going to be just okay. And then the last bit of news here is KU football. Their game against Kansas State has been announced for 11 a.m. on Saturday, October 25th. Obviously, you would have hoped before the season that it would have ended up being a night game, but closer we got to the game, K-State now 3-4, KU now 4-3. That probably wasn't possible, but I guess the last couple of years, KU's lost close games and night games, so maybe switch it up with a day game. But real conversation, debate, question, is that the most important game of the Lance Leipold era? I think my early indication, I would say yes, honestly. And we'll get more into that on a future episode. Also get more into some more KU basketball, late night in the fog, KU Louisville exhibition. Again, that KU K-State game. Plenty coming at you. We got Big 12 Media Days next week. So it's going to be a very busy this and next week. So make sure you subscribe to the show anywhere that you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time with Locked on Jayhawks.